Shabbat Shalom. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy almost Hanukkah. Thanks so much for being here tonight. And thanks so much to those of you out there in internet land. We're going to start with an opening song, Shabbat HaMalka, on page 10. After which, Tim Littman and Marcy Lackritz will light the Shabbat candles.
Shabbat HaMalka הנה היא יורדת הקדושה ברוכה ועימה מלאכים צבא שלום ומנוחה בואי המלכה בואי כלה שלום עליכם מלאכי השלום בואי המלכה
As these Shabbos candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Baruch Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Amen.
We continue with the Psalms of Kabbalat Shabbat, counting our way down through the week until we get to Shabbat. And we're going to start with Psalm 96 on page 13, singing the song Shir Chadash.
To God, all the earth, a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God, and we'll all sing along. All the earth, a new song unto God. Shiru Adonai, Kol
Turn to Psalm 29 at the bottom of page 19. Adonai Oz. God will give God's nation strength. Adonai Oz le'amo yitain, Adonai yevarech et amo. Adonai Oz le'amo yitain, Adonai yevarech et amo. Adonai Oz le'amo yitain, Adonai yevarech et amo. On page 20 and 21 with Lecha Dodi, we welcome the beauty of Shabbat, the Shabbat presence. And we'll be doing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. And at verse 9, we invite you to rise in body or spirit to welcome the Shabbat presence. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat. Lekabela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat. Lekabela, shamor v'zachor v'dibur echad, ishmi'anu el ha'miyuchad, Adonai echad, u'shmo echad, neshem u'tiferet.
Rodef Shalom, Ateret Kala, Kan Besimcha Uvetzola, Toch Emuneh Am Segula, Please take a minute to wish one another Shabbat Shalom. Cross an aisle, wave. And we continue on page 22 with the Psalm for Shabbat, Psalm 92. Transitioning from Kabbalat Shabbat to the evening service with Chatzi Kaddish on page 26. Yitgadol v'yitgadash shemei Rabba, Yalmad yivrach yirutzei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chai echon v'yom echon, uv'chai echon be'Yisrael, Vitpar vitromam vitnase, veitadar veitale veitalal, shemer kodesha richu, leila min kol birchata veshirata, tush lecha
rise in body or spirit for Baruch, the call to worship.
Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Baruchu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, bechokma poteach she'arim, ubitvuna meshana itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umesader et hakochavim, bemishmerotehem barakir kirtzono. Bore yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. Umavir yom umevi layla, umavdil ben yom uven layla, Adonai tzavaot shemo. El chai v'kayam, tamid imloch aleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. On the top of page 33, as you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem kevod malchuto le'olam va'ed. You may be seated. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha ubechol nafshecha ubechol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha ve'shinantam levanecha ve'dibarta bam Beshivtecha beveitecha, ulechtecha baderech, uvshochbecha uvkumecha, ukshartam leot al yadecha, vehayu letotafot bein einecha, uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha, leman tizkeru, ve'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'item kedoshim leloechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem, emet. In the middle of page 39, leading up to the Michamocha, we read responsibly, in a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again, we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing the shores of the sea. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, nora tehilot, osei feleh. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, nora tehilot, osei feleh. Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai. Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai. Malechutecha ra'u banecha okayam lifnei Moshe uMiriam ze eli anu ve'ameru Adonai lo le'olam va'ed. Who is like you? Adonai. Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל. Hashkivenu on page 42, our people's nighttime prayer for shelter. Hashkivenu, Hashkivenu, Adonai, Eloheinu, leshalom, leshalom. Hashkivenu, Hashkivenu, Adonai, Eloheinu, leshalom. V'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim, uleshalom, uleshalom. Hashkivenu, Hashkivenu, Adonai, Eloheinu, leshalom. Ufros aleinu, sukat shlomecha, Hashkivenu, Adonai, Eloheinu. Adonai, Eloheinu,
ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך עלינו סוכת שלומך השכיבנו השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום לשלום השכיבנו השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום ברוך אתה אדוני הפורש סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו Page 44, Vishamru, celebration of Shabbat, in which God ceased from work, Vayinafash, and restored God's soul. In body or spirit for the tefillah, beginning on page 46 and continuing on the even-numbered pages. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה. מחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
You may be seated, and we continue with our personal tefillot until Shalom Rav on page 60.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim le'olam. 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 Chiatahu melech adon, lechol hashalom. Chiatahu melech adon, lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim le'olam. V'tov be'enecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim le'olam. 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 Tasim le'olam. Tasim le'olam. Baruch atah Adonai, hamevarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom.
We turn our attention now to prayers for healing, Misha Berach, Prayer for Healing, is found on page 253 on the top. As I read this list of names, and it is a long list, I also will invite you to share names of those that you have on your minds, knowing that there are so many more people who are unnamed that we don't know, or people that we do know, but we don't know that they're in need of healing. We think now of Ira Altschuler, Noam Ben Aviv, Gloria Cadwalader, Frank Carl, Lou Salenzi, Alice Elias, Ann Fahey, Jim Goldman, Piers Haggard, David Mordechai HaKohen, Naum Kaplan, Natalie Klein, Lee Kramer, Hindasara Batchana Pearl, Marlene Marcus, Brian Martino, Nancy McGahan, Eitan Shir Ben Mordechai Valea, Edward Mims, Savannah Moreno, Jim Newman, Joanne Newman, Till Oster, Lev Podorovsky, Adam Schusterman, Jackie Student, and join together with the text on the top of the page. Avraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, veLeah, U'yivarech v'yirapeh et hacholim. Mי שברך אבותינו, אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, שרה, רבקה, רחל ולאה, הוא יברך וירפא את החולים. אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, שרה, רבקה, רחל ולאה, הוא יברך וירפא את החולים. My mother often tells me, you have to behave wherever you go. The implication is that someone is watching, and that person probably knows her. And as we left the house, I mean, you all can, many of you can confirm this. As we left the house, and one of my cousins confirms that my mom said this to her too, she would say, "Be good." And as many of us have discovered over the course of our lives, it's not just what you know, it's who you know. Joseph, at the beginning of this week's portion, Vayeshev, is still a teenager who believes that the favor of his father will be the key to his success. He is the favored son, after all, and there's a whole musical about him and his fancy coat, which we won't cover today. Joseph gives unfavorable reports about his brothers, who are adults, to his father. Jacob eagerly listens to bad reports of the other brothers from Joseph, and in teenage Joseph's mind, he was being good because that's what his father wanted from him. And this was his impact to his brothers. While some people's social capital remains strong with their own families throughout their lives, Joseph builds his in a different arena. The story of how Joseph found himself in an Egyptian prison began with another unnamed Ish and came to fruition with an accusation. Last week, I talked about the Ish with whom Jacob was wrestling and how at various points, a main character in the Torah will meet an Ish, some person, some unnamed character who was a catalyst for change. If this Ish had not directed Joseph as he did, we'd be telling a different story. We wouldn't be telling the story at all. The Torah describes Joseph as being an attractive young man, and his boss's wife propositions him, but he refuses. This was so pivotal that the cantillation mark for he refused is a shalshelet, which sounds like this. Shalshelet. The word refused sounds like vaymaen. While Joseph is imprisoned later on in the portion, he approaches the cupbearer and the baker from Pharaoh's court in prison, as both of them had been taken into custody and had become Joseph's charges. They seem upset, and it turns out that they had both had dreams which required interpretation. So here's where we see Joseph's growth as a person. Joseph initiates the conversation with these men, obviously taking an interest in their feelings. Joseph says that God can interpret the dreams instead of taking the credit. God can interpret the dreams. And in next week's portion, spoilers, he says the same thing to Pharaoh. Both by giving God the credit and by being a memorable person who shows kindness and goodness, Joseph is putting himself in a positive position before he even knows it. The line in the Parsha, Bereshit chapter 40, Pasuk 14, has Joseph saying, "But think of me when all is well with you again, and do me the kindness of mentioning me to Pharaoh, so as to free me from this place." The chief cupbearer is to be freed according to his own dream, and Joseph asks to be mentioned to Pharaoh in order to be freed as well. Joseph asks the cupbearer to do him a kindness in that way by providing a personal reference. In this situation, Joseph is the pivotal ish for the cupbearer, who could be the same for Joseph. But if Joseph had decided that since somehow he'd been put in charge by the prison steward and therefore was above giving counsel to prisoners, the cupbearer would have no motivation to remember Joseph. And in fact, the cupbearer did forget about Joseph until much later in next week's Torah portion, when Pharaoh himself needs dream interpretation. Better late than never, because you never know when you're going to need someone. So we see this type of reference building in other parts of the Tanakh. Mordechai, for example, in Megillat Esther, is given a 5-star Yelp review in the very last sentence of the book. For Mordechai the Jew ranked next to King Ahasuerus and was highly regarded by the Jews and popular with the multitude of his brethren. He sought the good of his people and interceded for the welfare of all his kindred. 5 stars. Ruth is another person whose reputation precedes her in the book of Ruth as she returns to the home of her mother-in-law and the home of her deceased husband, caring for her mother-in-law when she was not required to by any means. Boaz, who redeems her and marries her, had heard of her and her kindness before she ever even showed up to his fields. And only a few generations before Joseph, Abraham insists on paying for land in which to bury Sarah. Only 4 portions ago, Ephron the Hittite was okay with giving the land away, but Abraham wanted to do this by the book and pay for the land because he wanted to be sure his integrity was not up for debate. So you never know who's going to be a pivotal reference, be they a close connection or an unknown ish. Being able to tap into social networks in order to cultivate personal or professional advancement is a luxury not afforded to everyone. Those of us who do have strong networks should not only reap the benefits, we should also help others and recognize that not everyone in our society has the same access. Because after all, it's about who you know. And sometimes, people attempt to use their social capital for malevolence. In current events, the 3 men who killed jogger Ahmaud Arbery in Brunswick, Georgia, were found guilty this week. These 3 men killed a black man who was out for a jog. It was caught on camera, and the case almost was not tried at all. Asha Rangappa, former FBI agent and senior lecturer at Yale University, tweeted this: "Imagine that this prosecution was never brought because the DA's son was friends with one of the defendants. These guys thought nothing would ever happen to them and that they were above the law." The case gathered national attention, and while none of this will bring Ahmaud back, the power of networking coupled with the power of technology helped to bring the case forward, and the results are at least accountability, if not justice. On a larger level, drawing attention to tragic injustices and working together on big projects can help to change popular opinion. On a smaller level, building beloved community and seeing the humanity and image of God in each person is a way to build peace, one friendly neighbor at a time. Remember that you could be a pivotal person as the ish at the beginning of the portion, or the cupbearer near the end. Be aware of the power that you hold in your connections. Act with integrity, and do the kindness of mentioning someone's name for good. It may change a life. Shabbat Shalom. We begin to bring our service to a close with Aleinu on page 282. As we remind ourselves that it's on us, please rise in body or spirit.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום, והשיבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת, אין עוד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Remain standing for the mourner's Kaddish. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We remember those in our community who have recently passed away within 30 days: Alma Balter, Edward Bolner, Linda Busia, Rose Ferraro, Dawn Fitzgerald Swidel, Carolyn Goldberg, Susie Lippard, Dale Meter, Lee Rosenblum, Joel Safier, Janet Wolper. And we also remember those whose yahrzeit occurs this Shabbat: Otto Abraham, Irving Blumberg, Jack Bondereau, Sylvia Beyer, Tina Korkulis, Betty Browerman Dinkin, Evelyn Greenberg, Marcella Gold, Max Goldman, Meyer Grossman, Ruth Rosen Hartz, Julia Hohenstein, Anne Frank Hochstetter, Margaret Kopelman Lebovitz, Ray Lehman, Louis Levin, Samuel D. Levine, Reinhard Levy, Charles Lipman, Ree M. Lubet, Barbara Mars, Robert McQuiston, Rose Cohen Miller, Herman Pickus, Herbert R. Rosenthal, Charles Ruttenberg, Carolyn Schreiber, Frederick Serbin, Frida Scheffler, Ita Shepman, James Philip Summers, Joel Spear Jr., and Emil Trellis. Are there others who we are remembering today? Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for blessing. Kaddish on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, ve'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevarach le'alam ol-almei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudesha v'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. You may be seated. Oseh shalom b'imramav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru amen. Thank you all so much for being here. Thanks to Tim and Marcy for lighting candles. Thank you so much to Don for wonderful musical support and collegiality. Announcements are few. Tomorrow morning there is no Torah study, so you can sleep in, but please join us for services tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, either here on the sanctuary or online on YouTube, Facebook, and Vimeo. Hanukkah begins on Sunday night. We light the first candle. It's very exciting. I know that I had Thanksgiving food on latkes last night, and if you haven't tried it, I highly recommend it. Turkey, stuffing, gravy, potatoes, all together, delicious. All right, so we will conclude with Shalom Aleichem, welcoming and greeting the Shabbat angels on page 323, followed by blessings over wine and challah.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem Leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruchuni Leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tzedchem Leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'yahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh bereshit, ki hu yom techila lemikraei kodesh, zecher litziat Mitzrayim, ki vanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, ve'shabbat kodshecha, ve'ahava uvratzon, hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh HaShabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Please be sure to take your prayer books back outside on your way out, and Shabbat Shalom.